I'd like to talk now about flow control, which is another very important concept for Python scripts and something you'll use all the time in your work. So often we want to branch our code depending on certain criteria and do different things in different ways. So if something is true, we want to do something else. But if something else, if some other condition is true, we want to run some entirely different piece of code. And so the way we handle this is with the if statement. And so this is an example of what it looks like. So we have if, and then some condition that is a Boolean value. So if animal equals dog, this will be either true or false. Then we'll print the animal is a dog. So this is our indented code from this if statement. Now there is another construct called elif, which always comes after if. It's a contraction of else and if. So if this first case is not true, but the second case is true, then we'll run this block of code. And if neither is true, then we'll run what's under the else statement here. So if I go ahead and run this, you can see that animal is dog. So if animal equals dog will be true, and we will print the text the animal is a dog. We can change this to cat, and we can see that it ran through this statement here. It said, is animal equals dog? No, that's false. So we skip this. We then look at our next condition, elif animal equals cat. This is true. Animal is cat, so we will print the animal is a cat. And then we won't run anything else in this if statement. But then we could change it to, I don't know, animal equals lizard, right? So now we look at this first case, is animal dog? It's not. So we'll go on. Is animal cat? It's not. So we'll go on and we see else. This is sort of our catch-all statement here. And so we do go ahead and run this code here. Now, everything after if, after the first if and its following statements, is optional. So we could completely delete this and just have if animal equals dog, print the animal as a dog. Now if I go ahead and run this, I'll get nothing, which actually makes sense because animal is not dog, and so we just skip the text under this if statement. We could also do an elif, but not an else, and we'd still get nothing. So in this case, it's checking whether it's dog, then checking whether it's cat. It's neither, and we don't have an else, so it's not going to print anything in this case. But of course, if we changed it to, say, cat, it would still work. And so you can do if alone, you can do if elif, you can do if elif else, you could do if else, and you could have an infinite number of elif statements as well. So you could do if elif, 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 else, so on. And so it's a very flexible way of branching and having different code run for different cases. And again, the white space before the print statements is important in Python. It's a block of code that's indented, and so make sure you have some indentation after your if statements. So we have an exercise here to create an odd or even function. It will take one argument, and it will return the string odd or even, depending on whether the argument is odd or even. And you can assume for now that the argument is a positive integer. So again, if you'd like to try this on your own, please pause the video, but I'm going to go ahead and start working on this myself here. So I'm going to create a function with the def keyword. I'm going to say odd or even as the name. This function has to take one argument, which is our number that we want to check whether it's even or odd. So I'll call this our number. And so that is our function definition. Now we're going to be working on the body of the function. So we want to branch our code here. If the number is an even number, we want to return even. Elif or else, in this case, since it's a binary choice, it can either be odd or even. There's not really another option if it's a positive integer. We want to return odd. And so this is kind of, I gave a little bit of a hint here when I emphasized the word if. We're going to want to use an if statement here. And so we're going to have some statement where we want to check whether the number is even. And so one operator that we can use to help with this is the modulo operator, which, remember, returns the remainder from a division operation. So if we do number and then the modulo operator $2 equals 0, that means the remainder from dividing our number by 2 is 0. Then we're going to say that this number is even because it's evenly divisible by 2. Else, we're going to return odd. And so let's print out a result here. Let's say odd or even of 6. So we get that's even. If we do instead 7, we get that it's odd. And in this case, I'm putting the print statement outside of this function, and I'm returning a value. Before, in some of our examples, we had a print statement in the function, and it would implicitly return none. But in this case, the value, once we call the odd or even function, is either the string even or odd. And so we want to print out that string to the screen. So hopefully that makes sense. Maybe if I do my little indentation trick from previous lecture, that will help. So we're printing out the result of odd or even called on some number. Now you could do this a few different ways, actually. That's the beauty of Python, really. There's some flexibility. Really, I don't actually need this second else, or this else statement within this if statement. I could just do this. And this might look really strange to you, but it's something that Python programmers do a lot of. So it's a good thing to be aware of. So in this case, what we're doing is we're checking whether number is evenly divisible by 2, and if it is, we return even. And what this does is it says, this is the output of my function. I don't care about anything else in this function. We're done here. I have my result that I want, and it's the string even. And so if this runs, this will never run. If it returns even, it will never return odd. But if it doesn't return even, then we can be pretty confident that the result is odd. And so this function still works. It's a little strange, but it's one way of doing it. Now, there are other ways to do this as well. You could do something kind of funky. Let's say we could do maybe a list of even or odd that we're indexing. Remember indexing from our lecture on sequences with number %2. Now this is a really strange way of doing this, probably not the most readable way, but just a way of showing that there are alternatives in Python. You can do things any number of ways. So here I have a list with the strings even and odd, and I'm getting one value from that list by getting an index from this list. And that index is number modulo 2. And so if number is evenly divisible by 2, this will be 0, and it will get the 0th element in the list. And if this is not evenly divisible by 2, number %2 will be 1, because the remainder of that division will be 1, and we'll get the first element in the list. So maybe a bit strange. I probably wouldn't do this way in practice anyway, but just a way of showing that there are a number of ways to handle this exercise, and hopefully that makes sense.